In this video, I'll show you how to use flash on your Leica M3, Leica M2 or Leica M4 film cameras. Hi guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So following my video on Leica Flash Photography, some of you asked me to demonstrate how to use flash on a Leica M3 camera in particular. Now the problem you'll find is you cannot use a standard flash when it comes to a Leica M3. And if I bring in, let's just say a more modern Leica M film camera such as the M6, any Leica M film camera from Leica M4P onwards will work the same as this M6. So if you've got a camera later than the M3, it's going to be much easier for you. So obviously turn your flash on, set your flash sync to 1/50 or slower, advance the shutter, and hey presto, it flashes. So why is it so easy for the Leica M6? It's easy for the Leica M6, Leica M4P, is because this is a hot shoe, this is the cold shoe. Hot shoe means it's got an electronic contact point, cold shoe means it doesn't. So when I do all my kind of wedding photography with say film cameras or model photography, I just use off-camera flash most of the time, and I'll use triggers on top of my M4Ps and my M6. I bought the M4Ps and the M6 because it was less easy to do flash with an M3, but it is absolutely possible. So let's look at the Leica M3. So what equipment will you need for Leica M3 flash photography? Number one, a Leica M3. Number two, you need this little device, which is a Leica M3 flash adapter. Also works on the Leica M2 and Leica M4, I believe. I've only got the M2 and the M3. Next, you ideally want a short flash sync cable with a 2.5mm jack on one end to PC male on the other end. Basically, if it looks like this, it's the right one. And then, of course, we need a flash, but it's not any old flash. It needs to be a particular type of flash, and I'll show you that in a second. And then we need one more thing. So this is the equipment you need for successful Leica M3 flash photography. Let me show you how it works. First thing we mentioned, this cold shoe is not active, so we can't use this. So you need to use the ports on the back of the camera. This is the electronic synchronization port, so we need to use this for flash photography. The problem you'll find is if any of you have got M3s and tried flash photography before, is when you come to put your PC sync cable in the hole, it's too big, it doesn't fit. So it's like, well, how am I supposed to do flash photography when the cables don't fit? So what you need to buy is this. You can get them on eBay. I just searched, I'll bring up a screenshot to show you. That goes into the electronic synchronization port like so. That's a female PC sync socket, and then you need to attach the male PC sync cable. And next you need a speedlight or flash, but this is where it gets more difficult. If you follow this channel or the MrLeica.com blog, you'll know that I use a lot of the time Godox TT350 speedlights, Nikon F mount, and they work on most Leica cameras. The problem with these units is they don't have a sync port to be able to plug this in. So you cannot use Godox flashes, this particular one, on this camera setup. So we need other options, and ideally it needs to be a small flash so it's not going to oversize the camera. So first I started out with flashes like this, but again, this is great for on-camera flash for a Leica M camera because it's a one battery flash, one AA battery, but again, no socket, so no good for the M3. Great for say M6, but not the M3. And then after some searching on eBay, I found these cheap Chinese speedlights. They're 2 AA battery, and they have the key ingredient or the key thing we need for this work. They have a 2.5mm jack, and this is a must, otherwise you cannot do it, what we're trying to do. Turn it on, obviously, put your cable in, and then advance your shutter as normal. Make sure the camera's set to 1/50th, you see where the lightning bolt is, or less, and then hopefully, ta-da, it works. So everything is great. However, it's not that great, because if you put your flash on the top of the camera and then try and fire it, the flash won't work because it seems like the pin on the bottom of the flash shorts out by touching the metal contact on the top of the camera. What I did is, if I take it back off, I used a bit of sticky tape, and you need to cover up the metal contact center pin on whichever flash you're using. You can use any flash as long as it's got this 2.5mm jack socket. So in this case it looks like this, and then I taped it up, so now it looks like this. See, it's just covered up with just some black tape. So now when I put the flash back on, the moment of truth, done. So now you have a working Leica M3 with on-camera flash. The best thing to do, because you're going to have a cable at the back, is you want to ideally maybe cable tie it or use an elastic band onto the back of the camera or to the side of the camera body so it's out of the way, so it's not annoying when you're trying to hold the camera up to your face. And so to recap, you need the camera, the flash for the 2.5 socket, a 2.5 to PC sync cable, short cable ideally, black tape or any tape to something to blank out the bottom of your flash, and the Leica M3 Flash adapter, also used on the Leica M2 and the Leica M4. So that's how to do on-camera flash. How do you fire off-camera flash? You just need to buy a larger cable. So here's a cable that I use for other cameras, and then you just attach your PC sync cable onto the camera, and then you run this long cable onto your studio light or your off-camera flash. If you're using big off-camera flashes like the AD200 that I use, or something like this, I also use things like this Godox V850, slightly older unit, but basically bigger lights and off-camera flash. Just make sure these Godox units have a jack so you can plug them in like that. So that's how you do off-camera flash with your Leica M3. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, and then a bonus tip, what's the best flash to get? So I'll show you 3 types, but they won't all necessarily fit, just to give you an idea. Here are 3 types of flash. First you have, I guess you can call it like a static flash. So this flash will only fire forward and it doesn't move in any direction. Option 2, which is a better option, is to get a flash like this with a tilting head. So now the camera's pointing forwards, but the flash is pointing to the ceiling. So you can do bounce light photography with your Leica M3 with the flash on top of your camera. So this gives you almost an off-camera flash look on camera. If I do weddings and things, sometimes you have to have the flash on camera because you're moving locations, and so you need to make the flash look better than on-camera flash. So you need to fake it by using bounce flash. Join Patreon if you want to learn more about flash, but basically you'd shoot vertically, say portrait orientation with your portraits, bounce off to the wall here and onto your model, and it gives you off-camera kind of fake window light to one side, which is why it's better than the static version. But the best option, if you can fire them with a 2.5mm jack, is something like a TT350. This doesn't have a jack, but obviously it's fully rotating, so now you can fire the flash everywhere you want, and this is obviously the ideal. So you can have your lens pointing this way and the flash pointing that way, bounce it off the ceiling or the top of the corner of the wall back onto your subject to give a much more soft flattering light, or you can do it to the side or side and behind, things like this. There's so many things you can do. So ideally, if you're going to try and buy a flash for your Leica M3 and you're planning to do on-camera flash, try to find one with a rotating head but with the 2.5mm jack. And then as a bonus tip, as much as everybody loves their Leica cameras and their expensive lenses, the best way to improve your flash photography is not with a new camera and not with a new lens. The way to improve your photography is to improve your lighting. So the reason you probably rarely see me mentioning flash with the Leica M3 in the last maybe 2 to 3 years is because I no longer use flash with the Leica M3 and the Leica M2 and the Hasselblads and the Mamiya RZ and maybe the Mamiya RZ. Vintage cameras work better without flash, but you still need to light your subject. So what do? You watch my other video. Well, no, you really do. But let me just show you what it is first. You use continuous lighting instead of flashlight. So this is the light that I now use for my model photography. You can see it on the front of the camera with my Leica M3, because now I can sync at all sync speeds and still use continuous lighting. Bear in mind these are much weaker power wise than a flash, so realistically you're probably not going to go much above 1/250 with a 1.4 lens, and the light's very close to the subject. But this is the way you do very, very easy flash photography without needing flash. It's so much easier to use one of these than it is a flash, because what you see is what you get, so you can see the light on your subject before you take the picture. Obviously flash has the advantage in certain situations, maybe street photography where you want fast, high power in say a fast-paced environment, but for kind of slow-paced model photography like I do, I now much prefer using LED light panels such as this Bowling BLP1. I can put a link to it below this video in my kit list, rather than speedlights. No cables, no adapters, no accidentally getting the wrong shutter speed and so you screw up your images. You can use every shutter speed and you're not limited to 1/50. 1/50 for slightly moving subjects is a little bit too slow, so you'll often see motion blur if you're not careful, which is why I tend to try to use slightly faster when using LED light panels rather than flash. Using flash with Barnett cameras, you find a Barnett camera with a flash sync port on the front of the camera. It skews the patch that fell off, and then all you do is put your PC sync port into the camera. And finally, bonus tip number 4, if you really are interested in Leica flash photography, you are much better off getting a Leica R camera rather than an M camera. R cameras can sync at 1/100, so it's not quite up to Nikon levels of 1/250, but it's the best you're going to get from a Leica camera. So it can be the R6, R5, R7, All these cameras give you 1/100, and yeah, better suited for flash photography, and they've all got hot shoes. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. Check out my Leica Flash Photography video and also my LED lighting videos for more information on how to light portraits. And if lighting is your thing, definitely join Patreon. There's 100+ videos on there, and many of those are on lighting and portraiture. As always, a massive thanks to my patrons, and don't forget to subscribe if you want a chance of winning in the next monthly giveaway. See you in the next video. Bye.